All right, so today's practice will focus on hips and legs, stretching them, opening them up. So just let yourself begin settling in, resting comfortably on your back. Feeling free to use any supports that feel good to allow for more space to come into the neck, more softness to come around the shoulders. And more space around your lower back. So repositioning your pelvis and your head and your arms in order to find that extra space and softness within your body. And start to feel the whole back of your body as it settles into the support of the ground. And the more you give in to that support, letting go of any sense of holding within your body, start to notice the space inside your body, beginning to unfold, softening to the movements of your breath. So feel the quality of your breath as it is right now. Notice the breath's natural pace. Feel the natural depth of each breath. Does the breath feel smooth and even? Or is there a restlessness to the breath? Is there tension you can still feel around your chest or down into your belly? And this is precisely why we start each practice, relaxing and resting, just to get a sense of how the breath moves and giving your breath the chance to settle into a somewhat slower and steadier pace. Where you can feel the softness of your belly, relaxing to the movements of your breath. Feel how your belly moves as you inhale, and feel how your belly moves as you exhale. Be present with the full depth of your inhale, following its movements into the ribs, down into the belly. And be with the slow length of your exhale, feeling how your belly settles, how your lungs empty, and your whole body grows a little heavier, softer. And as you follow a few more cycles of breath here, continue to scan the rest of your body for any tension that comes back in, reminding your shoulders to rest. Letting the corners of your eyes be relaxed. And the hinge of your jaw loose. Aware of the inhale as it flows in. Feel yourself getting lighter. And aware of the exhale as it flows out. Feel yourself settling further. And then little by little, as you keep your attention here with your breath, start to let it deepen. And begin to move the body. Start to reawaken through the hands and the feet, fingers and toes, wrists and ankles. You can let the eyes open and enjoy a full body stretch. Wiggling and stretching any way you feel you like to at this moment. And then let's go ahead and bend the knees. And we'll hug both knees in. So resting your hands on the knees here, just start to do a gentle rock side to side. Feeling as your knees come in closer to you, you might get more of a massage further up your back towards the back waist, mid-back. And notice when you bring your knees further away from you and you continue to rock, the weight shifts more further down towards the sacrum and tailbone. So notice where you need a bit of that massage for yourself, feeling free to explore, repositioning the knees closer or further away. Good, and then coming back to center, let's keep one hand resting on each knee and just allow the knees to move separately. So whether they're moving in mirror images of one another, or maybe one is going back while the other goes forward. Just drawing separate circles with each knee. And so you end up finding more of the movement into your hips. That's it. Noticing the direction you're going in on each leg, and try it in the opposite direction. How does each hip feel today? Nice. All right, and then resting the feet back to the floor. Let's go ahead and hug the right knee in, and you might want a bolster or a block beside your left leg. So let's straighten the left leg along the floor. Hug that right knee in, pulling the knee in a little closer maybe with each exhale, and then allowing the knee to come further away from you as your belly expands with your inhale. So find that little bit of movement into the right hip with the rhythm of your own breath. Even when your knee comes in towards you, try not to use the shoulders too much. So resting and relaxing the shoulders towards the ground, away from the ears. All right, good. And then let's rest both arms out to the floor and let the knee fall out to the right and bring it across. Let's find the twist, lifting this right hip, trying to keep that right shoulder on the floor, turning your head in that direction, and then coming back again, letting the knee move out and then across into the twist. That's it. Next time you roll over to your left side, to your left hip, let's come all the way over onto that left shoulder as well and stack the hips and shoulders. Feel free to have a little pillow under your head if you like. So here, let's keep the hips stacked. Bottom leg is still stretched long away from the head as we go for some movement in this right shoulder, sweeping the arm back, circling it out to the right as you're turning your upper back and on to the left side again. So take your time in this movement and feel free to pause at any moment within your circle where you might be feeling a good stretch around the chest and armpit area. Good. And then once you feel ready to land into the twist, find it as best you can across both shoulders, resting the shoulders towards the floor. You might need to shift your upper back a little bit to the left. And at this point, you probably don't need the pillow under your head. You can let it relax on the floor and turn the head a little to the right. If that doesn't feel comfortable, just keep the head centered. Just allow for the full weight of your head again to let go, and feel free to reach across now into your right hip with your left hand. So get a sense of how your outer hip and glute feels as you sort of knead into those muscles with your fingertips. And you can run the hands or rubbing with your fingers along the outer thigh, maybe all the way down towards the knee. Just go ahead and explore a little bit how that outer thigh and hip feels. That's it. And as you're encouraging and allowing for that right leg to feel heavy onto the support or just in the air, try to relax a little more through the upper body to the right. Right shoulder settles a little more with each exhale. Okay, and then let's slowly unwind out of that. Coming back onto the back. We'll get into the leg being straight a little bit later with the belt. Just wanted to stay into the hip for that. Okay, so if you've got the support, block or bolster, you can bring it to your right side. And then let's go ahead and hug the left knee in while the right leg stretches long along the floor. So feeling as the right leg reaches away from the head, you can also kind of press down through that inner thigh. You might notice some length and space coming into the front of that right hip. And with each exhale again, pulling that left knee in any closer as you let out all the breath, and then breathing in deeply, allowing the knee to come a little further forward. That's it. Trying to release any sense of grip in that left hip. Sometimes when we're pulling the knee in, that left hip can feel quite tight. You might even take your thumb into its hip crease and try to remind if that tendon is kind of poking up to relax it. Good. And then rest the arms out again, shoulders resting on the floor while we find some movement into the twist. First, let the knee fall out to the left a little more, and then slowly bring it across until your left hip lifts, bringing the spine into a turn, even letting your head turn to the left. And moving like that a couple more times. In and out of your twist. We're sort of leading the twist here with the movement of the leg into the hip, and then bringing the movement through the pelvis, through the spine. And then next time you roll over onto your right hip, Come all the way over onto your right side, stack the shoulders, arms start out in front of you. Get comfortable with the head relaxed. And start to circle with the left arm, reaching overhead, out to the left as you find that turn in your back, down towards the floor, the hip, and back onto that right side. So now as the hips stay pretty still, the pelvis stays stacked, left hip above the right. We're finding the motion more into the upper part of the spine. Notice how it feels in this left shoulder, left chest and armpit area, pausing where you're noticing a good stretch. And then once you feel ready to land into this twist, turning the upper back to the left, shift maybe the shoulders, upper back more to the right in order to bring that left shoulder a little closer to the floor. It's perfectly fine if it's still a ways from the ground. And that's why we're going to be here for a few breaths, to allow for the upper back to settle into the ground as much as it can. Relaxing and resting the head a little to the left can help encourage the weight down through that left side. And all the while, let's explore how it feels on this left hip, reaching with the right hand where you can comfortably massage into that left leg, thigh, glute, whatever you can comfortably reach. Little pokes and rubs with breath. Feel the depth of your inhale here into your left side a little more. So that again, with each exhale, you feel like your left shoulder and your left hip are moving away from one another. You're finding a little more space into that left side for another breath or two. All right, bring your head back to center and roll once again onto the back. Whew. Wiggle it out, get comfortable and centered on your mat. And let's take the belt now, or whatever you're using for the belt. Long scarf, tie works well. Let's start out with the right foot in the belt, stretching that leg up towards the sky. So we get a little length coming into now the back of the leg. So try to feel the weight of your right thigh from your knee down, settling into that right hip, okay? So you might even like run the hand along the front thigh and just encourage it to soften and settle into that right hip socket. And then all the while, as your right thigh is heavy into the hip, can your right heel feel a little lighter? So you don't even have to move from the knee so much to find that. You're moving from the ankle to find that. So your knee can stay bent a bit while you reach the heel high and settle the hip down. So you can almost get this sense of a stretch in both directions. Press down through your right buttock, pushing it towards the floor while you're pushing higher through the heel. Can you get that action? With breath. Really nice. Let's go ahead and straighten the left leg if you haven't already along the floor. And be here for a couple more breaths with your hands holding on to the ends of your belt. You can gently encourage your toes to come back and down. So the toes are pointing back beyond your head and maybe even moving slightly closer towards your shin. All right, one more breath here. Okay, I find this next move a little easier if you have a loop. So if you've got like a scarf, you might even want to just tie a loop in the one end. I don't know, it's not absolutely necessary. I just find it a little easier. So your loop can be as big as you need it to be to hold on like this, where your palm is holding onto it, and that way it's just a little less of a grip in your hand. I find it a little easier to allow for basically the weight of my right arm pulls on that leg. So what we're gonna do is bend the right knee, and basically we're in a reclined lunge now. So that right knee is coming in and down towards that same shoulder, and you're trying to find and keep the lift of the heel. So it's like you're standing into that right foot. Yeah. So as the right knee comes in and down, you're still feeling the left thigh remain heavy on the ground. That's it. So there's an opening into the front of this left hip, while we're finding a nice deep crease into the right hip. So again, sometimes it's quite nice to bring your thumb, maybe the right thumb, into that right hip crease, just to kind of move the hip a little bit away from the head, find some space in that right hip, and then come back with holding on to the belt with the right hand. One more breath, down into those hips. Really good. Okay, so the next move we're gonna do is basically a reclined pigeon. So what's most important for this is that you keep the ankle flexed. So your ankle is not going to sickle like this, right? So instead you wanna stay strong in your ankle, balanced through the ankle, while you hold the loop now in your left hand. And then as you're bringing your knee towards as you're bringing your foot towards the opposite shoulder, your knee is moving away from that same shoulder. And the idea is not to let your ankle move. So you want to push the baby toe side of your foot into that loop while you're pulling gently your foot towards your opposite shoulder. Knee away from you. So you're finding that outward rotation. So you can even just explore it a couple times, like come out of it, back into that sort of reclined lunge, and then back into it, and just notice where the movement is coming from. Not your knee, not your ankle, but your hip, right? Turning your thigh bone into the hip socket. That's what we're doing. Okay, and then pause there. I really like to explore the movement side to side here. Once you've found that pigeon shape with your right leg, right hip, you can keep that pigeon shape through the knee and through the ankle. Nothing is moving there. What's moving still is just your hip going a little to the right and a little to the left. Yes. And yeah, if you notice, if you come across a particular area where you're like, that's a good stretch, you want to stay there, go for it. Really good. Just getting into the hips, quite deeply here. Okay, so we're going to keep this right leg in this pigeon shape, and now let's bring the left knee to meet the right ankle. Okay, so we're in that through the whole stretch. So we can either take the belt around the back of that left thigh now and hold on to the ends of the belt like that. As you're encouraging your left knee to come in towards you, you might feel a little more of a stretch now in that outer right hip. So let's be with that. Set aside your belt, I'd say. And we're gonna just take it into a brief twist. So keeping the legs exactly as they are, right ankle over left knee, take the right arm out to the side and slowly guide your knees over, guide your legs to the left. So your right foot is gonna land either on the floor, or if the floor feels too far away, you can bring a block under your right foot. Okay? And maybe even your left knee, something like that. So you're not letting this right knee come down, and instead, it's a bit tricky. Can you keep the knee pointing towards the ceiling and press strongly into your right foot? Right knee points up. It's almost moving away from your head. Yes. And that's going to bring you a good stretch into that outer thigh. Tensor fascia lata. That, I believe it's a muscle. Yeah, it's a muscle, and it's usually quite tight. If you just sort of, it's like a little pocket. It's like it's about the size of your hand or so, and it's like a little pocket where your pockets are in your jeans, right at that outer thigh. So if you poke around there, you might feel where you're getting a bit of stretch. Yeah, so feel your right hip sort of moving more away from your head towards the ground. It's not going to get there while your right knee still points up. One more breath there. Okay, and then let's come on out, back onto the back, and just give the legs a little shake. Whew. Wiggle it out through those hips. So let's take the belt around the left foot, and just, you can start with your right leg bent. I find that quite helpful just to bring your awareness for now into your left leg. So as you've got your belt around your left foot, try to feel and encourage, maybe with your hand running down the front of that left thigh. Feel the weight of your left thigh bone settling down into that hip. Left buttock is now resting towards the floor while you find length in the opposite direction, out and up through your heel. Knee can stay bent as you move more through the ankle to find that movement through the calf. And then even into the sole of the foot a bit, you might find some stretch as you're encouraging your toes down towards your shin, maybe even trying to bring your heel a little higher than your toes if possible. You got it. And then once you've found that in your left leg, you can slowly stretch through your right leg along the ground and feel that heel reaching away from your head too, pushing down through the right thigh. So finding that two-way stretch, right? Pushing down through the left hip, left buttock, while you reach higher through the left heel. Excellent. How does this leg feel compared to your other leg? Okay. If you want to use that loop technique again, feel free to bring the loop around your foot. Hold on to the loop maybe into the left hand for now. So you're going to try to keep the right thigh heavy. Try not to lift it. When you bend your left knee a little bit out to the side and down towards kind of the floor or the left shoulder. You're not going out and down so much that you're lifting your right hip though. So the idea, the object is not to press your left thigh towards the ground and lift your right hip. You want to keep as balanced as you can through the pelvis while your left knee comes in and down, just as much as your hip can bring you. Okay? And if you notice lots of pinching going on in that left hip, you can bring your left thumb into it and encourage, as your knee comes in and down towards that shoulder, your left hip sort of finds a little more space as your thumb moves the hip down away from the head a little more. So let's be here in this reclined lunge. Breathing down into the space you feel in the front of that right hip and softening any grip you come across in that deep fold of your left hip. Ankle is strong. Foot is gently flexed like you're standing in it. Really good. Okay, so keeping the foot fully flexed, so there's no movement in the ankle when you take your loop into your right hand, and notice how much rotation you have in your hip on this side. This side is much more limiting for me. As your foot comes towards your opposite shoulder, your knee will rotate away, pointing more to the left. That's it, as it tries to stay as close to the upper body as it can go. So just explore moving in and out of that a few times until your hip feels kind of ready to hold it. Okay, keeping a strong flex in that ankle. Baby toe side of the foot keeps pushing into your loop. Yes, and then pausing when you're ready. Noticing how it feels on this leg. You can keep the knee and the ankle still in that same position as you maybe find a little movement of your leg out to the left and across to the right. Okay, so your knee isn't moving much, your ankle isn't moving much. What's moving is your hip. That's it. Try to distinguish that. Really nice. Ooh, yeah, pausing at any time where you're enjoying a good stretch. Okay, and then come and find center again with your leg in that pigeon shape. And let's bring the right knee up. And meet the left ankle with that right knee and hold behind your right thigh with your hands or your belt. And just let's enjoy the stretch for a couple more breaths. That's it, keeping the foot flexed. You're going to bypass the knee and bring the movement, bring the stretch right into that hip. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to keep the legs as they are. Taking the left arm out to the ground. You may want the block again if you find the ground is a bit too far. To lower your legs over to the right now, so you can land that left foot on the floor or on the block. Right knee, right leg is just going to come to the floor. So you need to keep a little bit of engagement going on here in order to feel any stretch in this left hip. It's a little tricky. So push into your left foot. Feel your left knee moving away from the ground to point towards the ceiling more. That's it. And once you feel that action, so there's some strength in this left leg, as you're moving your left knee towards the ceiling, move the left hip down away from the head towards the mat. Feeling free to poke around, gently massage into now that left pocket muscle, tensor fascia lata. Sounds like a fancy drink or something. You got it. Okay, we're ready. Come on, back out. Whew. Onto the back. Wiggle and shift. Okie doke. Let's just find a little bridge pose just to move into the front thighs a little bit here. So really emphasizing the length and space through the front hips and the front thighs as we find bridge. So take the arms in any position you like. If you want to have a little more opening into the front of the chest, you can use the support of the arms beside you. Press down through the hands, press down through the feet. Really curl your tailbone towards your knees as your hips lift. Bring the pubic bone towards your navel more. Really pull it up. Yep, towards the head. And you're going to find more space into the fronts of those hips and let that space continue through your thighs. Imagining your thighs reach forward past your knees as that movement is supported by strong glutes. Your glutes should be firing here. Let them engage as you notice the breath into the front. Really nice. All right, once you've had enough of that, slowly start to roll your spine back to meet the ground from the top of the spine, through each vertebra, down to the tailbone last. Let's find a few windshield wiper movements. Opening the feet wider on your mat. Let the knees go side to side. Head can roll in the opposite direction. Okay, and then come on over onto your side, whichever side you'd like. You can make a pillow with your bottom arm, rest there. And then let's go ahead and press up onto, let's move it onto hands and knees. So let's go ahead and first just find some motion through the spine. We haven't done, well, we've done a bit of twisting, but let's go ahead and hug up and in through the belly, rounding through your back. As you push the floor away from you, feel your head release down. And then let the tailbone lift as the chest opens to the space in front of you, head lifts. That's it. Follow that motion through your back to the rhythm of the breath. Okay, and then let's bring the hands a little forward of the shoulders. We're going to curl the toes under. Let's move the hips up and back into a downward facing dog here. So keep a little bend in your knees and start to feel the arms pushing the floor away from you. And at the same time, feel the lift of your hips reaching up and back. Can you do that with a little more of a bend in your knees so the hips lift higher, head and neck release further forward and down between the arms? That's it. And then lift up all the way onto your toes as much as possible. Heels are high. Yes. And then keeping the hips pretty high, can you now stretch down and back through the heels without kind of pushing the backs of your knees back? So finding that distinction, sort of very similarly to when we had the leg in the belt, where you feel your sitting bones lifting and moving away from your heels moving down away from the hips. So rise up again onto the toes. Lift the heels nice and high. Feel the hips lift. Can you keep the hips lifting as you stretch down and back through those heels? Good. Try one more like that. Rise up onto the toes, hips high. Stretch down and back through the heels. Maybe even lift and spread the toes. Can you find that action? Really good. And then relax the toes. Feel a breath or two here in your downward dog. All right, nice. Lower the knees. Let's come to the ground. Back into child's pose. So allow for the hips to feel nice and heavy, relaxing towards the heels, and feel the weight of your head settle. Notice the breath. Let's feel the breath into the back ribs. Feeling a gentle sense of expansion there with each inhale, getting lighter through the upper body. And then with each exhale, can you let the weight of your head settle as the hips rest? Okay, and then let's come back up onto hands and knees. And so this one might be somewhat new. It's basically kind of like a weird lunge or weird pigeon, where we're going to keep our knees in line with our hips. And what we're going to do is slowly slide the right knee forward towards that right thumb. Your right heel is still in line with your knee, so it hasn't moved off center at all, like in regular pigeon. And so this movement is very determinant on what's going on in your knee. If it feels good enough to now walk your left leg further back so your hips lower towards the floor, which means you're finding quite a deep bend in your right knee. Okay, so your right knee is pointing forward, your left leg stretches back, and you're on the top of your left foot. Maybe even look behind you and see if you can bring that left leg in line with your hip and sit along the very top of your thigh, the top of your foot. That's it. And try to actively push into the arms. So there's a bit of a back bend quality to this movement. What we're trying to feel is a bit of an opening into the front of that left hip. And we're trying to lift and lengthen up from there. That's it. Bring the pubic bone up and in. You got it. Feel your chest wide as you look forward for just one more full breath. A little bit of strength here in the arms, upper back, and shoulders. Good. And then slowly you can walk your hands forward, walk your back leg forward, and then come back into table and just find a little movement if you want of a sway of your hips side to side. And then we'll try it out on the other side. So left knee comes forward towards that left thumb. And then if it's comfortable, walk your right leg further back. So you try to land as much as possible above that kneecap. So the right leg is in pigeon and the left leg is in child's pose, pretty much, with your knee pointing forward. So notice how it feels in the hips as you land on this side. Hips going just as low as your knee and your hips can allow, and then pressing into the palms. Roll the shoulders a little further down and back so the breastbone feels lighter and wider. You got it. There's some work here in your upper body while we're finding some stretch and space through the front of the right hip. Let the breath go there. Pulling up and in a little more through the pubic bone and drawing those front ribs in will take any strain out of the low back. Good. One more breath there. Okay, and then you can curl those back toes under, walk your back leg in a bit, and step that left knee back so you're in table once again. And then let's find big circles with the hips. So you're in table. Shift your hips over to one side and back a little towards the heels, and then push the hips over to the other side and a little forward of the knees. So big circles as large as it feels good in your hips. Keep it going in this direction. You might want to move your hands a little further forward for when your hips go forward of your knees. And then find those circles when you're ready in the opposite direction. Really exploring the kind of borders of your circle here, the comfortable borders of your circle. Really good. Okay, nice. And then let's bring it back into downward dog from there. Feeling and finding once again the lift of your hips with as much of a bend in the knees still as you like, making sure you're not pushing your knees back to straighten the legs, but instead you're reaching the heels down and the hips up to stretch through the legs. That's it. Find that for another breath or two. All right, and then let's rise up onto the toes again. We're going to bend the knees, step the feet forward to the hands, however many steps you like, until all the weight there is in your legs. And just feel free to find a little loose release now through the arms and upper body, head, neck, the spine, releasing over the support of your legs. So shifting your feet as you need to find that support. And again, it's the same thing here. Heels rest towards the floor. Hips lift away from the floor. And that's the action that's stretching through your legs. Not the action of pushing your knees back. You got it. All right. So with the support of your feet, let's push down a little more through those feet. Find a bit of a bend in those knees so you can pull up and in through the belly and start to roll yourself up. Whew, to standing. So let's find tree pose as we stand in mountain pose to begin with. We'll feel the support of both feet. And then let's keep the left leg. Yeah, we're going to stand into the left leg and try to bring this right knee up as high as you can. And maybe even if you can, hold on to it. You can also use the belt or something around your thigh and hold on to that. Hold on wherever you can comfortably reach, either with your hands or the belt. And the idea is to try to feel like it's similar, right? It's the exact same shape as when we're on our back and pulling the one knee in with the other leg stretched straight. So can you find that standing? A little more of a challenge. So press down a little more through that left leg, whew, as you try to pull the right knee in closer towards the belly. All right. So we're going to try to keep this leg pretty high as it can stay, while we take the left arm out to the side and turn the knee out. Good. And then let's bring the foot onto the inner thigh as much as you can, as high up the leg as you comfortably can. I know you usually don't emphasize that, but today let's find that, just to find more of that angle in the hip and knee. Okay. And then once you've found that, taking the arms wide, push the leg into the foot. Push the foot into the leg. And feel that right knee pointing out towards the side of the room. Maybe starting to lift the arms overhead. You can keep them out like a V shape. You can bring the palms together. Whew. Feel your breath as you're here in this tree shape. Embody your tree. Whew, it's a windy day for me. All right, when you're ready, let's bring the hands back through center and down. Whoo-wee. Holy smokes, shake it out in that left leg. Let's do a little movement. I need a little movement in my feet. Roll out onto the outer edges. You might bend the knees a wee bit. There's going to be some movement in your hips here too. And then try to roll in onto the inner edges of your feet. So there will be movement in your hips, but see if you can also find it in your ankles. Yeah, try to minimize the movement in the hips. Find it more in the ankles to roll out and roll in. Okay. And then try to find balance between rolling in and out, balancing from inner to outer edges of feet, as you're also balanced from toes to heels. Find your mountain pose with a moment of quiet and breath. All right, let's stand into the right leg. So we keep the support of the right foot, even and equal, from big toe to baby toe to heel. Keep off of that right hip so we're not sitting into that joint, right? As we lift the left knee. Yes. Hold on where you can with your hands, with a belt. Whew. As you push down through your right foot, you're pulling up the left knee. Good. One more breath here. Excellent. Take the right arm out to the side. Left hand guides that knee open to the left. Bring the foot onto the inner thigh above the knee as best you can, pressing your foot and your thigh together. So everything's kind of hugging in to the center. All right. You might even also bring the hands in front of you in the center, finding that center point, tailbone reaching with your right heel to the floor. Crown of the head gets taller, lighter to the sky, and then you can grow a few branches, or a couple anyway. You can imagine more, growing taller, emanating out from the center as you breathe into the center. All right. Woo. When you're ready, slowly bring your hands together and down through center. Woo, to step it out. Shake it out in that leg. All right. Okay. Let's come back into downward dog. And we'll do our finale of pigeon into some seated twists and hip stretches. So let's inhale the arms up overhead, looking tall. Exhale, reach wide with both arms, coming forward over your legs. Try to shift the weight a little more towards your toes and let the weight of the head release. Inhale, come up about halfway. So you lengthen more through the front of the body. Keep that space as you bend the knees. Let's bring it back into downward dog. Hands to the floor, stepping back. So bolsters, maybe something you want to have close by for pigeon. A bolster or a block. There's a couple different ways you can use it. You can bring the bolster halfway in your mat so that you can step your right knee forward, leading with your knee towards the right wrist and bringing that foot in front of your left hip. And then you can lay your hips across the bolster for a little bit of support here. If you notice that things are quite tight in your hips today, this is a really nice option. Or if you'd rather have the hips closer to the ground, you're walking your left leg back just like we did earlier, trying to bring the weight on top of that left thigh above the knee, top of the foot to the floor. Don't come down quite yet though. See if you can stay up. Yeah, I know. We love sleeping pigeon and I understand why. It gets into the hip quite a bit. But let's just open up first into the front of that left hip. Press the hands into the floor or even a couple blocks and try to lift through the front. Feel like your belly lengthens away from the pubic bone. That's it. And then you want to see if you can keep that length as you come down. Maybe just start on your forearms to the floor. So it's almost like you're in a Sphinx pose, which we didn't get to today, but you're pretty much in it right now. As your elbows are under your shoulders, your chest is still wide. You're still supporting yourself with some strength in the upper body for another breath or two. And then if you want to fully relax into your pigeon shape, you can allow the head to release. Bring the bolster, if you want, under your torso and relax over it. The thing you don't want to do, you want to try to avoid, is letting your head go way further below your shoulders. Okay? So if that's happening, you can bring a block for your head to rest on. And that way you don't overstrain the muscles in your neck. That's it. Try to feel the release of your shoulders, settling maybe away from the ears a little further. That's it. And allowing more softness to come into the shoulders, letting them settle even a little closer to the floor, along with your front body. The floor or the bolster, whatever you've got there for support. So sometimes, obviously, in pigeon, the sensations can be quite intense around that right hip. So meet the sensation with breath. Breathing down into the right hip, finding a little more space, so that with each exhale, maybe you can soften and settle down through both sides of your pelvis. Trying your best not to let all the weight shift into the right hip. Noticing if that's the case, you'll want to slowly, little by little, bring more of the weight into your left side. That's it. Follow 2 more breaths here. Okay, and then you're going to slowly lift your head, walk your hands back so they're under your shoulders. You can push yourself up. What we're going to do is roll over onto that left hip and thigh. Take your left leg, swing it around in front of you. Okay, so your right leg is basically still in pigeon. Your right foot is somewhere around that left hip. And then let's come into a bit of a seated twist here. So it's your choice whether you want to, and just get a sense of how it feels here, resting into your left hip. Left thumb can come into that hip to bring it towards the floor. And if you can now bring your left foot over your right knee without lifting off of that left hip, you can try that. Or just keep the foot wherever it can go in front of the leg. It doesn't have to go more to the right. So let's find the twist. You can bring your hand under that thigh or around the knee and twist to the left. So we're turned through the belly, through the chest, through the head. You might like to have this right arm stretched out or supporting you on the ground. So feel yourself sitting tall. Let each inhale bring you down to the support of the floor, resting into your hips. And with each exhale, can you feel a little lighter, taller as you twist? Really nice. Okay, let's come back to face forward. One more seated before we take it to the other side. So I'm going to give you the option of crossing knee over knee in the center. And you're going to want to probably bend your knees less, meaning your feet come further away from your hips. Your feet move a little forward. You'll want to just make sure nothing's pinching, everything's comfy. left knee above right knee. If this doesn't feel comfortable in your hips and knees, come into more of a cross-legged position with your left leg in front. Okay, either way, you're going to find some movement into your hips. This is where more blocks can come in handy, because when we're going to come forward over the legs, you can either rest your head on a block or two stacked to where you need them, or if that's too low, what you can do is stack your blocks in a way where you can rest your elbows on them and head in your hands. That's it. So resting forward from those hips, still resting them in and down to the floor. While you feel the breath here, softening into the belly, expanding into the back ribs. Okay, let's slowly take ourselves back upright. Keep the legs as they are, whether the left knee is on top or leg is in front and cross-legged. And then just take it into a bit of a side bend. We'll go to the right hand to the ground. As that left hip stays heavy, let's stretch up away from it. Leaning our upper body to the right, finding that stretch into your left side. Nice. Good, and then take your time to come on back upright. Whew. Let's lean back into the hands, stretch out the legs in front. Just take a moment and just move around in those hips and knees and ankles. Just trying to loosen them up a little before we take it to the other side. Okay, so when you're ready, come on over onto hands and knees, and then let's revisit downward facing dog. You've got your bolster and blocks handy for the second side. So whenever you're ready, lead with your left knee bent, moving it towards or behind your left wrist. Foot comes above your opposite hip, and then you can try to stretch your right leg a little further back, landing the weight above that kneecap as much as you can. Even a block under that left hip may be enough if you don't have the bolster across under your hips. Yep. You can bring yourself hands to the floor in front of you, maybe walk them in a little bit, as long as it feels okay in your low back. Just be aware of that. And now, as you're here, allowing your hips to settle away from your head and sort of almost back and down a little bit, try to pull up more through the pubic bone. That's it. Notice what you feel in the front of your right hip. Breathe down into that space. You might even come up onto your fingertips to allow for a little more lift into the chest without pushing your ribs forward. Can you find that distinction? Good. One more breath with a strong back, open front. You're lengthening through the waist as you lower down onto your forearms. Let's pause there. Elbows are under your shoulders. Feel their support of the forearms as your chest is wide to the space between your hands. Yeah, so notice what you feel in that left hip as it moves sort of back and down. Feel your chest reach forward. Really nice. If it's comfortable to go any further down, if you want to relax into it, sometimes it's nice to bring that block again under your head, or you can also just sort of stack your fists for your head to rest into. What you want to avoid is, again, that shoulders up, head down like that, okay? So try to let your whole front body lower together as much as it does. So if you need support underneath your torso, find it, a pillow, a bolster, a block, to find more support. There you go. Each side is often so very different when it comes to the hips, so it's important to accommodate each side so that you can be here with comfort, without risk of injury, no overstretch or strain anywhere. So that way your breath can also move a little freer and deeper. That's it. So follow the depth of each inhale down into that left hip. And each exhale, maybe scanning the rest of your body for tension you can let go of. What's going on in your jaw, in your neck and shoulders. Can you soften any grip through your left thigh? And pay attention to the exhales. Feel the exhales leaving your body slower, longer, making room for a deeper breath to come in. Follow one more full breath here. So taking out the block if you've got it under your hip, hands by your shoulders to push yourself up. This time we're going to let ourselves roll to the left thigh and hip, guiding the right leg in front. Finding both sitting bones. Left foot is still in front of your right hip. And then we can try to walk the right foot over to the left as much as it does without lifting your right hip. So keep the support underneath that right sitting bone. Right foot is also supporting you still. So can you bring the big toe down into the ground? And then we'll twist to the right. So turning belly, turning chest, turning shoulders and head. Maybe you want to briefly stretch out through that right arm. Feel some width across the collarbones. And then relax the hand to the floor for a little more support and lift through your spine. Let your breath move you in this twist, responding to the inhale and responding to the exhale. All right, let's breathe in. Come on back to face forward. This side, like I said, could be quite different. So you can either try to stack your knees. You might move your feet further away from your hips. Feeling a strong flexed ankle if you're in this position. Cow's head legs, or cross-legged with the right in front of the left. Okay? Using blocks, again, if you'd like, when you come forward, you're trying to move forward as much as you can from your hips and then allowing a release to come into your back, resting either head on blocks or elbows on blocks, head in hands. Breathing down into those hips. Noticing also a sense of width and space into the back ribs with each inhale. And feeling the weight of your head relax and settle further with each exhale. All right, this one can be a little intense, so take your time to come on back out of it. First, lifting your spine, leaning back into your hands. Whew. Unwind those legs, and maybe while we're sitting up like this, bring your feet to the floor nice and wide apart, feet in front of the knees, and then allow for a little bit of windshield wiper movement as you sit. So when you move your knees up through center, you might have to kind of scoot your bum back a little bit just to prevent yourself from sort of crawling forward on your bum. If you notice that it feels good to hold the one knee in and enjoy some stretch there for a breath or two, let yourself before you take it to the other side. That's it. Okay. And then when you're ready, let's come on back onto the back to relax and rest once more. Using, once again, any support you'd like for your hips and your low back to rest comfortably. Just check in with your legs, maybe give them a little shake. It's nice to just sort of roll them in and out, sort of pivoting on your heels as you roll your legs in and out, loosening up any tension there from the hips through the thighs, calves and ankles, toes. And then just allow them to flop and land wherever they naturally do. Rest your arms in a way that helps to free up your shoulders. Head relaxed and heavy in the center where you have lots of length and space through the front of the throat, the back of the neck, base of the skull. Rest your awareness here with the rhythm of your breath, just allowing the breath to flow freely. Letting it settle into its own steady, natural rhythm. Open up your awareness here to the sensations within your body, feeling them come and go as the breath does the same. And feel your connection with the ground through the whole back of your body. And start to gradually deepen your breath. once again, move into your hands and your feet, fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. And whenever you feel ready to move, go ahead and enjoy a full body stretch. And bring your knees back in. Roll around, rock a little side to side through your low back. And come all the way over onto your side. Rest there for a couple breaths, easing here the transition into the rest of your day. You can use your hands to press yourself up into any comfortable seated position. Maybe noticing how your hips feel. Rest for a moment with the palms together in front of your heart, giving thanks for your practice today. Namaste.